You are listening to the Freedom Podcast with Van Moody. Our desire is that you begin to live in freedom every day. Freedom in your mind, freedom in your finances, freedom from the external pressures of life. Prepare to be transformed as we seek to be free, mind, body, and soul. Let's get started.
Hey family, welcome to the Freedom Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Van Moody, and it is a joy to be with you on today. Thank you for prioritizing this podcast, because on this podcast, we cover a variety of topics that pertain to your best life, a life of hope, a life of freedom, and a life that is positioned uniquely for you to embrace everything that God has for you and to live what we often call a life of purpose, fulfillment, and freedom. And so I am always joined by my co-host with the most, particularly when we deal with matters of finance, all the way from LA, George B. Thompson, the money maven. How you doing, George?
I'm doing awesome. Excited about our topic today, as usual.
Absolutely. I'm super excited. Before we jump into our title and topic today, let me first of all thank those of you that are partners on this podcast, our freedom champions, freedom funders. It is because of you that we are able to curate unique content and to do this very podcast and a number of other things that are designed to bring hope and freedom to so many people. I love how people, George, have been reaching out to me and you talking about how this podcast has added significant value. There have been lots of additional conversations, lots of additional movement, because there's some things that we cover in this podcast that then mobilizes people to really take their next step. So I'm super excited about that. And I always want to give a shout out to all of our podcast partners, because we would not be able to do it if it were not for you. So thank you for your generosity. Thank you for your support. And I pray that if this podcast has been a blessing to you in any way, shape, or form, that you would consider sowing a seed, helping us to continue to grow our platform, because there's so much more that we want to do and so many more people that we want to reach. And so talking about reach, talking about making a difference with our content, George, today we're going to start a really significant topic. We're going to talk about generational wealth. Now, I know that this is a topic that is really important to me. It's really important to you, but it's really important to God. You know, as we were preparing for this podcast, one of the things that the Lord put on my heart when we talk about this topic of generational wealth, there's so many facets to it. And so we're going to take multiple podcast episodes to really dig into it. But biblically, one of the things that the Lord reminded me of is the story of David and Solomon, particularly in 1 Chronicles 28. The story is also covered, we know, in Samuel as well, 1st and 2nd Samuel. But I love how in 1 Chronicles 28, it talked about how David dreamed of building a temple for God. But, God didn't allow him to do it because, he had too much blood on his hands. But instead, it talks about around verses 4, 5, and 6 of 1 Chronicles 28, how he gathered the materials and the treasure and all of the resources needed for the task. And then watch this, he charged his son Solomon to be brave and to build the temple. And so this is in many ways a biblical blueprint for generational wealth and the transfer of generational wealth. Now, I know a lot of people know the verse that also says that a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. But, I think that that's a great verse. I think that that's a traditional verse. But I want people to understand as we start talking about this, that there's several places in Scripture where generational wealth and the transfer of generational wealth is not only encouraged, but it's modeled. And the other reason why, George, I think that this is significantly important is this in all of the financial leadership that you provide to a number of people. We are living right now, and there's been so many articles and things that have documented this in the largest time of a wealth transfer in our lifetime. But the sad part about it is Black and brown families often are left out. The stats are staggering. One statistic, one statistic suggests that for every $1 of wealth that white families have, Black and brown families only have 10 cents. And so, you and I are passionate about making sure that the people of God, and that's of every race and ethnicity, build their life according to the word of God, that they operate based on God's principles in every aspect in their marriage,
Right.
when it comes to their money, but particularly when we talk about generational wealth. The truth is, Black and brown families are behind the eight ball, which is why this topic is so important. It's probably more important now than it's ever been. And then I know, George, you're working on a brand new book on this topic. And so I'm super excited for us to jump into this. And maybe let's take it in pieces. Maybe let's talk about the importance of building generational wealth, and then maybe in the next episodes we can talk about how do we position ourselves to transfer it. But let me kick it to you, George. You know, I've shared my
Right.
heart biblically and practically about why this is
Right.
important to me, but I know you're seeing this from a different lens. You got a brand new book coming out on this topic, and a lot of the work that you've been doing and helping people is on this topic. Why do you think that this is so absolutely critical now for us to get this right?
First of all, you hit the nail right on the head when you started off, when we first talked about David and Solomon, because he was a man after God's own heart. So he did what he could. And then, I had to bring this up because we had the Olympics recently, is that he passed the baton.
Yes.
I'm raising my hand right now if you're just listening in the part like this, and I'm all clapping in advance for all the things we're going to say and what he just said, is that he passed the baton. Is that we want to look at how we can pass the baton. When he got all those resources and everything later, and he got all those resources together, and then he passed it on to give someone like a head start. As you see in the Olympics, when you see people running, imagine doing the 100-meter dash and someone moving you up 10 yards, or they
Mm-hmm.
move you back 10 yards. Back 10 yards is not giving you anything, but then maybe being in debt. I didn't say putting cable in your kid's name. I didn't say anything about that. But I'm saying, like, we do things that set people back. You want to set people forward, and then you want to build things generationally. And then when you said statistics, and then you said they were staggering, they are staggering because people aren't learning how to transfer wealth. So when you said, what should we cover? The first thing we should cover is, what is generational wealth? And
Yeah,
then how do you
that's a big
pass
one.
it? The
Yeah.
first thing is, a generation is 20 years. And by the way, you and I are not old, but I'm finding now kids that I've baptized at our church and different things. Now they're like, hey, I'm going to high school. I'm going to college. This is, you're seeing different things that are happening in a generation. So then whenever you pass generational wealth, remember this, everyone hold up two fingers. There's two things that have to pass. And then we're going to go back to the Bible on this. Is two things that have to pass. The first thing that has to pass is wisdom. I didn't say data. I didn't say information. I said wisdom.
Mm.
Wisdom is experienced knowledge.
Yep.
So did you see? What did Solomon ask for when I come back to you? He asked for wisdom. The second thing that has to pass is resources, meaning money. And then later on, we'll see how we can dive into these. It may be houses, it may be stock, it may be a business, but you're passing on resources. So we want to be able to have people do that and have knowledge and wisdom. Do you see, if we pass something to our kid, and we see this all over, and this is in California, you can let me know if this is around the country and let us know in the chat, but we watch people inherit houses or inherit money and
Yeah.
resource, and it's spent within a year, 11 months. It's all spent because they didn't have the wisdom. So
Yeah.
one of the things is that you're going to see, and then everything is, you remember I've done the show, and then I make my claim, and I still make it. I am the world's greatest dad at 1/3 the price. And I think, Dr. Moody, I think you're a great dad, but I don't think you're at 1/3 the price. Okay. So what I'm doing is, sorry, so one of the things is that I'm teaching my kids certain things. Like when we go to, and then so I gotta stop plugging Costco all the time. We go to stores and retail stores. They know we own the stock of that company, or that they
Yeah.
know that we own into that. They know that. And then I'm gonna kick it right back over to you. But my daughter knows that. We did Holiday Hope. We're giving out turkeys and everything. We do this event with Magic Johnson here at Faithful Central. We do it every year around Thanksgiving. And we were giving out Mattel American Girl dolls and Hot Wheels and stuff like this. My daughter, when she was 9 years old, walked up to walked up to the Mattel thing and said, look at all these Mattel toys. And she said, Daddy, we should probably buy some more Mattel stock. The VP at Mattel, the people, all those Mattel employees turned around and said, who's, who's your, who's your dad? And everyone in the parking lot pointed at me and they were like, man, that's just the tip of the iceberg. But you see what did she do? She knew what those companies were and she saw how they were giving and then said, let's own them. That is passing the generational baton. That's the same thing. You see David taught his son and then and doing the same thing. So in that area, that's why generational wealth is so important. And how about you? Why is it so important to you?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, and I want to give some biblical context to it. But let me start by saying this. I think passing wealth without wisdom is a waste. That's so good. So let me say that again. I think when you pass wealth without passing the wisdom first, then it's a waste because that wisdom is paramount. It's almost as if when people have the wisdom, they can gain the wealth. But if they have wealth without wisdom, they're going to squander the wealth. I'll tell you a story. One of my college roommates is also in a field like you, George, and is a money maven guy, and he's a partner at a wealth firm. And I remember, when we graduated from undergrad, he went to Wall Street and I went to seminary. And I remember early on in his career, he reached out to me because one of his early clients was a janitor who won the lottery in the Midwest. So, this guy's occupation he was a custodian of a company, a janitor, and won, I don't know, 10, $15 million. And what my friend and college roommate was trying to get him to do was he was trying to get him, first of all, to tithe. And he wanted me to teach him on the importance of tithing on that money for several different reasons. Biblically, he wanted him to have that wisdom, but then also from a tax standpoint, he knew that he needed to have some charitable donations, and he didn't want to do it. And so fast forward to today, I was checking in on the guy. He just randomly came up in my spirit. And I asked my buddy, I said, man, hey, how's the guy doing? He said, man, you would not believe that he's gone through all of that money and he is now asking me to borrow money. He said he called me the other day and asked me to loan him $1,000. Now I want you to wrap your mind around this. This guy won somewhere around 10 to $15 million in the lottery. And in a span of, 10 years or so, all that money's gone. He squandered it. And that's an example of getting the wealth without getting the wisdom. Now,
Right.
That's not what generational wealth is about in terms of the transfer, because you want to be able to leave something to your kids. But most importantly, if they don't have the wisdom first, they're going to blow it up. Now, I gave you a practical example, but now let me give you a biblical blueprint. We started off talking about David and Solomon. But after Solomon dies, there's a tragic story in 1 Kings 11, about Solomon's son, a guy by the name of Rehoboam. And this goes into 1 Kings 12 too. And it is really sad because Rehoboam comes to power and Rehoboam, inherits, the major temple and everything that Solomon had amassed. The Bible talks about how Solomon was not only one of the wisest men in history, but also was one of the wealthiest men in history. But what happens is David passes to Solomon wisdom and wealth. What Solomon passes to Rehoboam is just wealth. And Rehoboam comes to power, has wealth with no wisdom, and makes bonehead decisions, and the kingdom fractures. The kingdom blows up. And so that united kingdom that, David had and that Solomon had crumbles to pieces, and then things just go haywire from there because he had wealth, he had leadership, he had all of those things, but he didn't have wisdom. And that's one of the issues that I think parents have to guard against, particularly, George, in our generation. I don't know if you see it a lot in California. I see it a lot, in the South. we have been blessed, and what we want to do is we want to set our kids up. We want them to have experiences that we didn't have. We want them to have opportunities that we didn't have. And don't get me wrong, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But we have to make sure, first and foremost, that we're giving them that wisdom so they can responsibly steward those opportunities and ultimately the wealth that we want to leave to them. Because if not, then it'll crumble and they will blow it up. And I've seen it many,
Exactly.
many, 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 many times.
The poorest person on earth is the person without faith. Humanity has been led to a critical crossroad, wondering if there is an alternative to the world as we have made it. In essence, a lot of people have simply stopped believing in anything or anyone. They have simply lost their faith in faith. While it is absolutely tragic to lose a job, to lose a spouse, to lose a child or home or business, these are not the greatest losses one can experience. The greatest loss in life is the loss of belief. When one loses the ability to believe, one loses both faith and hope. When hope is lost, purpose is canceled, and life is robbed of meaning. Belief is the raw material required for commitment, persistence, and faithfulness. No man or woman can live beyond their belief, for without faith, all hope is lost. As a person whose life has been radically transformed by genuine faith, Dr. Van Moody has a passion for helping people understand what real biblical faith is and why it's so important. If our belief is gone, our life shrinks because possibilities are limited and our expectations are low. Believe is a must-read for anyone wanting to understand real biblical faith in order to believe big and live a life full of endless possibilities and limitless opportunities. Visit vanmoody.org or anywhere books are sold to get your copy today.
I think this notion of passing on wisdom begs two big thoughts. Parents, number one, you got to have the wisdom yourself, which is part of the reason why we do this podcast, which is part of the reason why we try to do everything we can to provide a platform for you to gain as much wisdom as you can, learn as much as you can, on how to manage resources, what are wise decisions to make. But then you can't just hoard that wisdom. You've got to have the conversation. So, George, I love when you talk about your kids, because what's evident is that, it's a family kind of atmosphere about wealth management, that your family, it's not just you as the money maven that has all this wisdom over there. You share that wisdom, and you discuss it with your kids, as you guys have your family meetings, as you guys make family decisions. Those are the conversations that you guys have. And that's the same thing we do in our family. When we make money decisions, when we budget, when we revisit the budget, it is not just a conversation that my wife and I have. It's a conversation that, we have with our kids, because we want them to understand that you have to have the wisdom first and foremost, because yes, we are working to be
Right.
able to provide something for our kids. But if they don't have the wisdom first, then no matter if you leave them $1 or leave them $1 million, they won't handle it properly.
Right. So two things. Everybody, if you writing things down, if you're under 40, you typed it down. Wealth without wisdom is a waste. That's number one. Number two thing is to have kitchen table conversations. That's how you
Absolutely.
pass also wealth. I'm just laughing because we just had our kitchen table conversation and everybody's in it. So we're getting ready to we had to take a little vacation, and we're getting ready to go down to in San Diego. So we're talking about SeaWorld, Lego, we're talking about these different places we're going to go. So now I'm dividing up, and then we talk about responsibilities. For people to go, people got certain things people need to do. So we talked about different responsibilities. So everybody's, our kids, at least my kid, these kids are 12 and 10. So what we're doing is we're teaching them to have responsibilities. A lot of times we don't, so we walk through that. But everything that you just said in the area of just people and passing generational wealth, that's actually how you do it. So you have
Yeah.
those processes that you walk through, and teaching parents. So we also do something called the Wealth Academy. So that's teaching kids under 18 about finances. So this is actually positive news. When I talk to kids about finances, they really are in tune with a lot of these things, because you want to know why? They're hyper spenders. You want them to invest in the companies they spend on. They already know. And I'm sorry I have to mention these things and don't, when these come out and I say them, like Roblox, there's games that these kids
Yeah.
are playing. You want to own the companies that these kids are doing. And by the way, we're not giving out stock investment advice right now. I'm using examples. So these are just examples. But for example, like you're seeing like, in video, you're seeing different companies that do a lot of technology, and the kids are very familiar with them, and Apple and different companies, and they're learning to not only just consume them, but you want them to purchase them. So you're moving them from consumers to producers. So you're
Yes.
learning to do both, and you're walking them through that process. And you know how you do it? You do it as a family. When you opened up this show, you said, "Hey, family." And we say family because you understand it's your family. And then you teach it generationally, because now my kids do it. And then they want to teach people that they hang out with at school. They're teaching that exact same thing. So my
Yep.
daughter just went to a CEO camp, and they went and they taught about business things. And I came and spoke one day, and I came and talked to them about how we do that, and then how we pass on generational wealth. That's the wisdom part, and the resources part as well. So the kids can better manage the resources.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. So, George, if the first step is passing the wisdom, gaining the wisdom, number one, passing the wisdom, having the understanding that wealth without wisdom is a waste, having those kitchen table conversations for the parent that's listening to this, that is thinking about, okay, where do I start? What do you say is step number two? Now I want to give you my step number two, but
Gotcha.
then I want to pass it to you. So maybe I'll do 2A and you do 2B. I think number one, understanding the importance of kitchen table conversations, gaining that wisdom so that you can pass that wisdom on. I think that's number one. But let me give you 2A, and then I want to throw it to George to give you 2B. I think the other thing is you also have to strategically plan for the day after tomorrow. So, understanding how to manage money and making good money moves and talking about it as a family is important. But then I think you've also got to intentionally plan for the day after tomorrow. Where do you want to be? What do you want to leave behind? And intentionally planning for that is absolutely critical. And then let me toss it to you, George, because I got another 3A, but I want to get to 2B first. But let me tell you why I think 2A and this notion of intentionality is so important, because so many times we don't plan. We live and move financially by the seat of our pants, and we're not thinking about the day after tomorrow. So generational wealth is about decision making, and then it's about decision managing. You have to intentionally say, I want my family, I want my kids to be better off financially than I was. I want them to start further
Right.
down the road financially than I did. And so that is a decision you have to make. But then the second thing is you got to manage that decision with the intentionality with which you put certain things in place, the intentionality with which you say maybe no to some things now, so you can say yes to some things later. So I think that intentionality is extremely important. So for me, George, that would be my 2A next step. What's 2B for you after they have kitchen table conversations,
Gotcha.
after they understand that they can't pass wealth without wisdom because that's a waste? What do you think is the next step?
Be intentional and let them experience generational wealth. In other words, like you start living the life where they do it. Like, in other words, take your kids to the grocery store. Like right now, whenever a kid opens up a grocery store, opens up a refrigerator, everything in the refrigerator is free. They need to
Mm-hmm.
understand that, hey, let's go. No, let's come out here. Let's look at these apples. Let's look at this fruit. Then you're doing generational. Gosh, it's a whole separate episode. Generational health. You see, you want to
Mm-hmm.
show them how to shop. Like, hey, this is healthy food. This is that food. So then you're showing, and then there's something called unit price. You're showing them how you buy food. Like I'm doing and then you remember if it's on sale, if it's in season and it's on sale, it's on us. We getting it, and we're making, and then we're utilizing that. So I'm showing them. They're seeing how you shop. They're seeing how you buy. They're seeing how you handle your money. Just telling them how to handle it without actually showing them, then you'll do that. Then earlier we talked about this. because what we want to do is we want them to be appreciative when you do something and
Yeah.
then not entitled. You build, and this will be a whole nother separate episode, you build entitled children by just giving them everything and not showing them all the hard work. We struggle, then we say we're going to make, then we've done pretty well, then we just make it really easy on our kids. The challenge with just not with doing that is they become entitled. And then what you want to actually move them to, and then we're moving to 3 now, is empowered.
Yeah.
Entitlement is just giving them everything. Now you see how, remember I said I'm going to SeaWorld and Legoland and everything. So I'm going to walk in that amusement park and we're going to meet the day before. And I'm saying, let's make our food we're going to eat and let's buy right now. Because you remember, we've done episodes on this, everyone. Discount pricing, regular pricing, and premium pricing. Because, when you came to SoFi Stadium with me, you saw what premium pricing was. So
Right.
what happens is we did this. Then my kids walk into that amusement park and I give them a 10 and 2 5s. Now, everybody that's in California knows there's very little you can buy with $20 inside of those places. But I gave them the
Yep.
money before and I paid for it. And I said, this is your money. And whatever you have left, I'll double it. So you know what they do? They don't spend any money because what did I do? I gave them the money. I didn't use it. I didn't pay for everything. If you pay for everything, they're going to be doing what they did to me. They're going to be buying $15 ice cream cones and popcorn and stuff and eating little bags and walking away with it because it's your money. You're going to empower them and you're going to show them how to do that. And then they're going to do the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. They're going to give a third of their money. That's the giving. And they're going to invest a third and they're going to spend a third. So when I give them $20, it's $7 they give, $7 that they can invest, and then $7 that they can spend. And then a few years ago, one of my son Alexander asked me, Dad, but 7 and 3 is 21. And I said, son, thank you so much for letting me have the opportunity to explain compound interest and how the money's invested and how it gains. So you see, use everything as a learning opportunity, but that's how you do it.
Yeah. Here's the last thing that I would say as we talk about the first part of this, and then in the next episode, we're going to get into, after you've created generational wealth, what are the mechanisms and understanding you need to have to transfer. Here's what I would call 3A. 3A for me, George, would be contentment, meaning you have got to get to a place where you are content now so that you can continue to create the wealth for the day after tomorrow. Meaning if you consume everything now because you're not content, how many additional pair of shoes do you need? Right. How many more clothes do you really need? And so this notion of contentment is one of the issues that will either make or break your capacity to create generational wealth. If you are never content, and if you have to have the newest and the latest, then you are the perfect target for all of the marketing gurus in America, right? Because all of the commercials, all of the marketing culture in our country is based on you being mass consumers. So remember, George, you mentioned a moment ago, we have to help our kids to understand the importance of being producers, not consumers. Well, as parents, we also have to think about unplugging from this mass consumer mindset, so that then we can have margin to then continue to fuel our wealth creation vehicle. Because if you are mass consumers and you're eating everything, spending everything, consuming everything, then you won't have anything. And there are a lot of people that get to the end of their life and they're like, man, I really wish I had something to pass on. George, you and I have lamented over some of the individuals that we know, anointed men and women, people that are really near and dear to our heart, but we've lamented because we recognize that they did not plan. They were not content. They went all of their life and had to have the newest car, the new this, the new that, and they spent everything. And now when they got to the end, when it was time to really live well through generational wealth transfer, they didn't have anything to transfer. So for me, this is one of those aspects of it that people really don't talk about. I hear people saying, hey, I want to create generational wealth. I want to set my kids up. But then kind of coming back to what I said earlier about decision managing, we don't reverse engineer and understand that in order to do that, there are some critical things we have to do right now. And that's that
Right.
notion of contentment. I don't have to go to everything. I don't have to drive the newest car. I don't have to have, the newest clothing. It's interesting, George. People often laugh at me and they say, Bishop or Dr. Moody, man, you work out all the time. And I'll tell you a little secret. Part of the reason I do it is not only because I want to honor my temple, but let me tell you about a wealth reason why I do it. I don't want to have to buy extra clothes. I
Oh,
have suits and jackets, George, that are 10 and 15 and 20 years old, that I still wear now. And what that does? That allows me to be able to have more savings that I can use towards wealth creation. Because if I'm out of shape and I got to buy new clothes, that means I'm spending or I'm eating into money that could be fueling my wealth vehicle.
exactly. And the reason I did this little fist bump earlier, I thought I was the only one that did that. So I
No,
just
bro.
let you know, I work out this morning and I do that also. My two reasons for that is one, I don't want to spend the money and I like my swag. I like the way I dress. So, in doing
Right.
that and my best and the way that I kind of change up what I'm doing that. And then the number two reason though, I'm going to say this and not cry is I had children at a little bit old, me and my wife were a little bit older when we had children. We had a kind of it was a struggle. My wife had a prayer group and everything, and for us to have children, I want to be in shape to be able to. I want to play my kids and I should say this, I'm trying to say in a nice way, not petty way. Be able to beat up on them like the way my dad was always really really good. Feel like he can do all that, and I want to be able to play and be physically healthy with my kids to be able to do
Yep.
that. And then
Yep.
maybe but also I think I played collegiately. Pepperdine played volleyball, and then also the Olympics is going to just also play a little bit with I've played athletics. Our whole family has, and I want to be able to be competitive with my kids, and I want to be healthy at later on in life, and so that starts by doing a disciplined journey, and the same way that I do the health, actually the same way I do my finances, the same way I do my health. I'm disciplined, and you're intentional with it. It's a priority. Like there's certain
Yes.
things that I do. And then also we're talking about this is interesting because it's about money and generational health is that I have certain things I do. I drink water. And you guys, this has to do with money. I drink water only. And then also, unless it's a special occasion or something like that, I drink water. Second thing is this, I eat a salad every day before noon I have to have a green meal. And then the third thing is also I walk. I just walk and I do that for physical, but also for mental health. That's how I do a Bible says I do walking Bible study. I mean, use the revelation and then God, I thank God for the downloads I get from that. I get them from
Yeah.
actually walking, not sitting and doing these things because we sit a lot during the daytime. So you can actually double up and pass generational. Let me know what you think. Maybe we'll do episode generational wealth and generational health because your kids will be in better shape because that's just what you do. Like we're on here saying, "Hey, everybody, we're getting ready to go walk," and then everybody like this, okay, and then we're out, we're playing sports.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Wow, George, we're out of time and we're just scratching the surface of this. And we're going to come back in some subsequent podcasts and get into part 2 and 3 of this. We talked about today, the first step of generational wealth, creating it. What are those steps that you need to engage in to create it? And then we're going to talk about the importance of passing it and how you do that. George, I know that you've worked on and you got a new book coming out. Why don't you take a second and tell everybody about the new book and when can they get that new book? And because it's on this topic of generational wealth transfer.
Yes, yes. So I've been speaking, I have this book, 21 Day Fast Start that came out, but I've been going around and the topic of generational wealth and how do I pass it and how do I build wealth and everything has been a topic that people have talked about. But on September, I'll be having September 7th, the book will be coming out and everything like that. So it'll be a blessing to people. And then one of the things is, oh my, it just flew by. Did you see that? So this is the first. This is my author's copy. That's why I have a little thing right here on there in doing this. So I always go through and we prove it. So I just got this last night. And so I'm just excited about it. And it has all the things in there about, what is generational wealth, how to build it. And then this is the coolest part. One of the cool parts, I should say. It has practical steps you do at the end. And then just like in my books now and all my Ready Set Grow series, It has QR codes at the end of the chapters on this, and this is a new thing, not new thing. This is what I'm doing with all my books now. Is it has QR codes so that you can get more information and doing things, and it can give you new information, and it can run in a video format. There's certain cars that you have that can update every 6 weeks or update all the time. So then not only when you buy a book, it can always be updated by coming and clicking on the QR codes. And it shows you how to build generational wealth by finding out what level you're at, getting to the next level, and then bringing your whole family with you. And then also we ask that you also bring your community with you. So that'll be available. And then you guys know you can always go to my website at georgebthompson.com, or you can always click in the website. I can't find George, and then all everything will pop right up. All right.
All right. Well, family, it's been a great episode. We're going to get into some bonus material for our partners. And George, I want to ask you about a little known secret that I know that you share when it comes to generational wealth. We're going to talk about that in our bonus episode. So thanks, family, for being with us. You know where you can find George. You can always find me at vanmoody.org. You can go to that Freedom Podcast page on my website. You can go back and listen to prior podcast episodes because there's been a lot that George and I have covered. And so we do this for you. We pray that this podcast has continued to add tremendous value to you. If so, let us know that. Drop us a note. Share the podcast with friends and family. You can always go out to your podcast platform, whether it's on the Apple Store, Google Play Store, Android Store, and you can subscribe to this podcast so that you are immediately notified every time we drop a new episode. And I want to encourage you, if this has added any value, why don't you consider partnering with us because there's a lot of bonus episodes and content that we release specifically for our partners. But until next time, family, we look forward to us coming back together again on another incredible episode of the Freedom Podcast. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Freedom Podcast. If you find inspiration, education, or fulfillment in our episodes, consider becoming a partner. Your donation ensures that we will continue delivering quality content alongside some of today's leading experts. Connect with us by becoming a Freedom Friend, a Freedom Champion, or a Freedom Funder. Together, we will continue to produce content that provides hope and healing. Thank you. Your generosity is appreciated.